meetings of the 6th of August 2019. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of Council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. All councillors and staff are required to speak into the microphone. You may need to move your microphone closer to you to ensure you are heard and recorded on the live streaming. Your microphone will glow red when it is picking you up. Any apologies?
Councillors Taylor and Whitten.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Move, Councillor Hemming. Second, Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. We acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land. We'd also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Declarations of interest. Councillor Romano.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, the Quest Apartments, I can't recall what number they were, but I want to declare a non-pecuniary and non-significant interest in that because I did several months ago. So I just thought it'd be best if I do that tonight as well.
Okay. I'd like to declare an interest in item 2.6. Sorry.
Sorry, Reg.
You're right.
Item 5.6, Southern Lights. As employer of Essential Energy, I'll have significant non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. I would like to declare an interest in planning item 2.6, the planning and development. That is Nez Day on the Mitchell Highway, because I have lodged a submission on behalf of my wife and I as a neighbour. And it's non-pecuniary but significant. Okay, got those. There are no late items, no mayoral minutes. Now, the council adjourns now for the conduct of the open forum, and this evening we have 3 speakers. And our first speaker is Mr Nick King from 12 Eliza Place, Orange. Organisation is the Environmentally Concerned Citizens of Orange. And the topics for discussion is the development application DA 324/2015, which is 4968 Mitchell Highway, modifications to development. Thanks, Mr King.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr Kidd. Mr Mayor, councillors, council staff, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to address council on the proposed modification to the development consent for 4968 Mitchell Highway. As we are aware, the modification refers to a change in the conditions of consent which has been issued by the Land and Environment Court relating to stormwater runoff and fuel storage on the site of a proposed heliport. In earlier submissions, ECHO has expressed concerns about the potential impacts of fuel spillage and the possibility of contaminated stormwater entering Orange's water supply through runoff from the proposed development. Although opposing the development, supports the conditions of consent which have been imposed on the development by the Land and Environment Court and wishes to strongly oppose any application to modify these conditions. We strongly oppose the proposal to change the management of stormwater from underground tank storage to an open stormwater storage system. We feel that this has a less efficient method of containing spillage and contamination than that which was originally imposed by the Land and Environment Court. An open dam has more potential for leakage and spillage than the more confining properties of a tank. We must safeguard the quality of our dwindling water supply, and in doing so we must take whatever steps necessary to ensure that there should be nothing to threaten the quality of our water. The fact that this facility has been allowed to proceed in this area and the danger to our water supply that it continues to represent continues to be a concern to ECHO. As it has been allowed to proceed, it is up to Council to ensure that best practice is observed to reduce the prospect of harm. I believe that it was in the spirit of best risk management that the Land and Environment Court imposed the conditions of consent that they did. ECHO urges Council to honour those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr King. Our second speaker, Mr Charles Everett, 143 March Street, Orange. The organisation is the Orange Heritage Group, and the topic for discussion is DA 70/20191, and that's 3 Sale Street, Orange. Thanks, Mr Everett.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. The Heritage Group completely is against this piece of... I've got lost for words tonight. That's unusual.
Very unusual, Mr Everett.
This
Want a drink of water? Would you like a drink of water?
this frontage on number 3, it will spoil the complete Sales Street landscape and streetscape. It'll also impact on number 1 by blocking the view. And you have our submission on the item. Can't say much more against it, only that we wish that this was in the heritage area originally. We're hoping that it'll become heritage. A great example of difference between the early days of Orange and the pre-war days of Orange. Also, I'd like to voice my complaint against the way this has been, well, I was spoken to when I made application to have a look at the papers. I was told there was nobody in the building that could talk to me about the lack of information. Waited 20 minutes to get somebody to come in, gentleman handling the application. I asked for more information. He told me I could not look at any more than what was on display.
Bit of order, Mr Mayor.
Mr Everett, I will follow that up. I think that is a staff matter which I'll follow up. Mr Milletta? Councillor Milletta, yeah. I think that's a staff matter. If you want to talk to me about it or put it in writing, I will certainly follow that up.
Well, can I also
you're talking about, sorry, Mr Everett, you are talking about the development, Sale Street, and confine your comments to that, please.
The notification for tonight's meeting, dated the 26th of July, was hand-delivered to my place yesterday after 10 o'clock sometime. Found it in the box this morning. Now, that's made it very hard to get the rest of the members of the group organised. I complain about that also.
I'll certainly look into those issues for you.
Thank you.
Our third speaker is Anne Kennedy from 26A Rosemary Lane. And the topic for discussion is development at 111 Clinton Street, Orange, DA 81/2019. Thanks very much, Ms Kennedy.
Lower that a bit. Good evening, Mayor, Council staff. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm responding to the development for 1-1 application report for 111 Clinton Street, available for viewing from late Friday afternoon. I'm begging that Council vote to not approve this DA, but if they are not of a mind to reject it at this meeting, then I ask Council to defer its decision in relation to this development on the grounds that I believe there are some issues which very much need to be addressed. I will try to summarise them. Firstly, I have to say I have serious concerns about the inaccuracies in the Blomleys' response to our submission, but there were so many inaccuracies that I won't waste my 5 minutes detailing them. But I do have to clarify we never ever objected in any way their planned renovation and extension to their existing house. Our only objection is to the 2-storey additional building they want to build at the back of their house and directly opposite our northerly windows in our quiet little, very narrow Rosemary Lane. My first case is that Council has a visual bulk and scale envelope, and I believe this clearly encroaches on the bulk envelope. In the ODCP guidelines, 7.76 or something, Council states buildings within 15 metres of the street frontage in areas of predominantly single-storey houses are to be or to appear as single-storey. The proposed secondary 2-storey dwelling lies only 7 metres, which is less than half, from the edge of the street, and Council states that a building less than 15 metres must be only 1 storey. So the proposed 2-storey dwelling clearly violates Council's visual bulk and envelope code. It will be 6.62 metres high. It will impact on the streetscape and be totally out of character for this lane. There is no other 2-storey dwelling in the whole 3 blocks of Rosemary Lane. The expert advice I received was that this secondary 2-storey residence is outside Council's bulk and scale envelope. Our problems are the visual impact right at our door, the minimising of our northerly light and sun, how close the building will be to us, how large, the impact on our space and our views. An architect actually said to me this will have a huge visual impact on us. He said the building is all we'll see out our windows instead of space and sun. Council states the development comprises a housing type that is compatible, this is in inverted commas, with the established streetscape and will not compromise the amenity, the surrounding area. The report says the development generally fits within Council building envelope for single dwellings. Proposed development clearly will have a huge visual impact on the streetscape and it's out of character with all the other homes in the street. As I said, there are no other 2-storey dwellings all along. I believe if approved, this proposed development would impact on the streetscape, the neighbourhood and would set a precedent. If the proposed development is approved, while the reduced amount of available sunlight does fall under Council guidelines, this is for our house, there will still be significant impact for our home at 26A Rosemary Lane. Our house lies very close to the street and all its living areas fall on the north side of the house. This is our only aspect and our only outlook. We only have north. The proposed 2-storey additional dwelling lies directly north of our house. Stated earlier, Rosemary Lane narrows, bottlenecks, the point at which our properties 26A Rosemary Lane and 111 Clinton Street start. And it impacts on the very narrow dwelling. I've lost a page, sorry.
Just have to get an extension for you, Councillor Munro, second Councillor. All in favour? Thank you.
Council guidelines state 70% of window has to have 3 to 4 hours of unbroken light. But however, 26A Rosemary Lane currently has 100% of the full amount of unbroken light. Sunlight's the reason we bought our home. It warms the house in the morning. It shines through all our living areas all day. And it has a significant impact on the quality of our living, it greatly reduces our heating costs. I am still appealing to councillors this will be outside council's bulk and scale envelope. I've read council report. I believe this 2-storey second residence is a dubious recommendation for approval because I have received expert advice showing me the DA for this second residence breaches council's guideline in several places. It would be setting a precedence, as I said. To hear all that again. The council code states developments must provide private open space of a minimum area being 50% of the internal living area of the residences. Also, this private open space must receive full sun between 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Proposed extensions to the existing dwelling, plus this secondary 2-storey dwelling, will have a total living area of 320 square metres. Therefore, the private open space should be 160 square metres. The development plan shows the private open space is only 103 square metres and it only gets sun for a couple of hours. So this is very much outside the code. I'm respectfully asking council to please deny this DA, and if they cannot do so tonight, then to defer their decision in relation to this development. I understand in its recommendation to approve the development, council staff have done the best job they could to assess the development and reach a balanced decision. But this development is not a standard housing development. It does not fit at all neatly within council's planning instruments. The development actually offends council's DCP.
Ms Kennedy, can you...
Sorry. Paragraphs. It actually offends council's DCP as the staff identify in the report. At page 31, the report states the bulk of the development occurs at the rear of the lot. The 2-storey structure will encroach somewhat into the recommended visual bulk envelope standard of the DCP. It's this non-compliance that I submit to you all needs more consideration. I know I'm the one raising the concern because I'll be significantly impacted. I do believe, importantly for your consideration, is the integrity of the planning decision, the proper application of council's planning instruments and the precedent that this will set. While council staff report submits the development meets the visual bulk planning outcomes, I submit that this is inconsistent with its own report. Sorry. The development seeking to be first of its kind. While council staff have determined it's okay to do this, as someone who actually lives in the particular part of Orange you're being asked to change, I respectfully ask you to please either deny this application or at the very least defer making the decision until we can put more fulsome information before you. I've not had time to engage an independent planner to
Ms
undertake
Kennedy,
a
I'm going to
report.
have to...
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Your time
Please,
up.
please
I think-
deny this
And
approval.
I hope everybody's read your submission that's in the papers.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I knew it would be long-winded, so I thought I'd send it in
We've all
advance.
got it, and I thank you very, very much.
Thank you
for
very
taking the
much for
time.
letting me speak. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Councillor Maletta.
Just a point of clarification with regards to Mrs Kennedy's remarks. I note that she's indicated that she's got an expert opinion, yet she's asking for a deferment should we choose not to approve it. I'm just curious to know on what basis she wants the deferment. Are you not satisfied with the advice that you've got, or what's the situation? You can come back up to the microphone.
No, I think we can answer that. We've got to get on with the meeting. That'll come into planning.
Okay.
They didn't have time.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, actually, and that actually is explained in your submission. I'll resume the council meeting now. 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 16th. Moved Councillor Hamling, seconded.
Second.
Romano, all in favour? Aye, against? Council meeting adjourns now for the conduct of the policy committees. First of all, we have Planning and Development Policy Committee, Councillor Turner. And could I ask you if you could do 2.6 first, and I'll go outside now.
Welcome everyone to the Planning and Development Committee, commencing at roughly 7:20. We have declarations of interest from Councillor Previteria, Councillor Miramano. No, that was a different one, was it? Right.
Councillor Kidd, the Mayor.
Councillor Kidd on 2.6. So if we can deal with 2.6 to start with, which is development application DA 3244968 Mitchell Highway.
Chairman,
Duffy.
I'd like to move the recommendation that we refuse this modification of 2.6.
That, Mr. Duffy. Seconded by Councillor Munro.
I base my assessment on the information that I received, and I go to the actual judge himself. Mr. Preston is one of the most eminent judges on the Land Environment Court throughout New South Wales, and he's exceptionally good. And one of the objectors in Belinda Scott actually goes, if you go on to page 472, which I assume you've all read, it says that the court now satisfied. That is the original approval of the court of what the judge himself was satisfied. And I can't see any reason why we could overturn something like that and come back again. And rightly so, the judge, when they spoke to the objectors, said, hey, when the DA was lodged, it's got nothing to do with it. We're talking about the actual issues. And the issues is contamination of the water. We've even got a report later on in our thing about contamination of water out at Lucknow. I totally agree with the objectors. Some of those objectors lived out there all their lives, and they know what it's like when it's wet out there. They've lived out there. They know they can get bogged just from walking around in some of those places out there. So I have to sit up and take notice of what they say, but I take more notice of what the judge says. And the judge says, this is what we're happy with, what we want. I cannot understand why a modification has to come back in, because the modification dilutes what the judge said, what the court accepted. What bother? I'm totally against this modification.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Any other speakers to speak? No further speak. Right. Just in time.
Just in time. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Oh, look, I'm speaking for the recommendation of refusal on environmental grounds, on the grounds of the concerns about our drinking water. When I read the report, the council staff have indicated that we can, from my reading of it, we can legally modify development application. We're in a position to do that if we desire. However, we've spent a lot of time over the last few meetings talking about Spring Creek Reservoir and allowing recreational use of that. And eventually we got to the point where we said no, we wouldn't allow that, any further recreational use on Spring Creek Reservoir on the grounds of water security. This is not sort of right next door, but it's pretty close to our main water supply in terms of Summa Park. Possibly what is being proposed seems to be able to sort of check out that the EPA sort of says, after expressing some concerns about the about assessment of it, they requested a number of conditions to be placed on the developments which and have been placed on the development, and maybe that's managing the risk. But is it completely negating the risk to our water supply? And I think my reading of the report is though no, it doesn't completely negate the risk or the increased risk. Is there an increased risk as a result of the changes being proposed? And I think there is. Yes, it might be able to be managed, but given the critical nature of our water supply, given the critical nature of our water storage levels, why take that risk at this particular time? Well, why take that risk at all? So I'm happy to support the recommendation of refusal.
Okay, if there's no further speakers, everyone understand it is a recommendation for refusal. All those in favour of the recommendation? Unanimous.
You have to have a reason for the refusal, Mr. Through Mr. Chair, I've just considered that, and given the particularly Councillor Nugent's reasons for refusal, I believe we have enough information to make that notice up.
About not abiding by what the judge, like going against what the judge says, is that a reason?
I think Councillor Nugent put enough technical reasons for us to make up a notice. Yep.
Someone would like to bring Councillor. Go back to general reports, 2.1.
Move, Mr. Chair.
Moved for any discussion. Discussion, all those in favour?
Aye.
And unanimous. 2.2.
Move that, Mr. Chairman.
Calculating the general estimated cost of development, moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Prevotera.
Need to move that, and I've had discussions with the acting general manager on this one here, as regards to the original cost estimation of coming through here. And I think this is the pathway to address those issues, because if you look at social media, some of them start off at $6 million, and by the time they finish, it's $10 million, and that's a huge difference. So I think this pathway is a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
So I'm happy to support the recommendation. Just a question, really, in relation to the trigger points of 500,000, 3 million. How are they determined? Is there other criteria? Does it relate to a legislative instruments? If I can ask that question, please.
Mr. Chair, I sat down with the Acting Director of Development Services and we thought, we don't want to make a very large rod for our back. I think $500,000 was what we chose because most houses would fall under that. We're trying to capture the larger developments.
Okay, they seem like sensible.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favour?
It's a matter. I just to let you know, Mr. Chairman, I have a matter arising from that as well.
All those in favour? It's carried. Matter arising.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, matter arising. There's two cases that went through, and both of them went through the court in the court process. And one is 62 Bean Street, and the other one's Highland Heritage Helipad. Now, I think I've also had a conversation with the director about the original cost of what was submitted to these and what was actually finished. But one of the other things that does worry me was what the original decision of what the original DA was, what the outcome of what the DA was when it came from the court. And I would like if the director could come, or the acting general manager could come back with a report that says what those differences were, and also indicate to us the original cost of that development when it was lodged to what the actual cost itself was. And so we can have an understanding. And also the actual costs of the court case, where that money went, as in who paid for the costs. They paid for their own, or whether how much the council paid, or whatever the case may be. That's my matter arising with that. I'm happy to move that way.
Mr. Chair, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miletto.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Duffy there, I'm assuming, like when these estimates come in, though, there would be a amount of discretion with regards to fit outs and things like that. I mean, a builder can can estimate that a building may cost, for argument's sake, $500,000, but then at some stage he might say, well, the fit-out's going to change completely, which would then could incur 25, 50% on top of there. So it makes it difficult, especially when you have high-quality buildings like 62 Bing Street and some other buildings. So I'm just wondering how those type of expectations are managed by council.
We'll include that in our report, Mr Chair. There is leeway within the legislation, is my understanding, plus or minus. We'll discuss that as well.
Okay, no further discussion. Okay, we'll go into 2.3. Development application for 111 Clinton Street. Have anyone do the recommendation?
You recommend half of it? Yeah, well, you're on.
No.
Look, I'd like to probably have a closer look at it, to be personally really honest. I haven't
Moving the recommendation?
No, I'm opposed to the recommendation
Moving.
at the moment until I examine closer, Mr Chair.
You're moving for deferral.
I'd like to move it for
deferral.
Yeah, I'd like to move for a deferral.
What you're doing?
That's exactly right. And we've got a couple more councillors here, and it gives us a little bit more time to absorb this, have a chat and have a real good look at the actual aspect of it. I understand that the concerns could be very well founded, and I think we should defer it and back and have a look. I'll go around there tomorrow, actually, if I can.
Some of us have already been. We took the opportunity, but we're not always able to go. Councillor Hamlin.
Mr Chair,
I get a second.
Yeah, Councillor Duffy.
yeah, that's all. After visiting it yesterday, I agree with everything else except the part of the
Granny flat or whatever.
or whatever other story they're putting on. So I'm happy to do it for deferral, and hopefully we can go back to the person who's building it and see what we can throw around. But I'm totally against I'm with everything else, but except the extra floor.
Great.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, my question also would be whether there's some more information available on whether that additional dwelling might be intended to be used as occasional accommodation, as in Airbnb or such, and where that might fit into planning instruments and council's conditions, particularly in relation to how it operates in such a small street and potentially a precedent. So if that could be included, I know that there was some information in here, but it wasn't clear to me. And again, deferral I would support to be able to get more information on that.
Need to get a little bit more clarification.
Councillor Duffy. The reason why I seconded this was for deferral, because most of the early days when homes were built, they were built facing the northeast because they got the sun all the way through winter. That's obviously what this original house is all about. And I'm not confident about what is in the report as regards to the shadowing. Seen reports come to us that show an actual shadow where it actually goes and what time of year and all those type of things there. So I'm happy for the deferment.
Okay, no further discussion. I'll move that to be deferred. All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.4, development application 66 Phillips Street.
Recommendation.
Moved Councillor Romano, seconded Councillor Hamling. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. We get to 2.5, which has been withdrawn. And there has been a report here from Mr Hodges that the applicant has advised that she would like to remove the front extension to the bedroom from this application, which is the contentious part. It's going to be deferred, resubmitted
And just to point out that if that front is knocked off, I will look at it under delegation and you won't see it again. Okay.
Everyone happy with that? I forgot that.
Resolve the recommendation, which...
So the recommendation that PDC deferred development application to the acting general manager for determination of the delegated authority.
Yep, I'll second that.
Happy with that? Those in favour? Against? Carried. Done 2.6. 7 development application 132 Kite Street, West Apartments. Romano has declared an interest.
Is this the Quest Apartments? Yes. Yep. Declare interest. Non-pecuniary interest, non-significant.
Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the recommendation with some adjustments, which is into, I think it's item number 21, which states the amount of money involved, and to 53. Looking at the reason why I'm moving it is to be the.
Did you get a second or sorry?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Monroe seconded.
Mode C, as in the report, which states that $59,000 and $48.41 be paid for a parking contribution. Now,
does everyone understand what Councillor Duffy's reporting?
Well, if you go to the recommendation of the...
Councillor Duffy, maybe Mr Waddell might explain it before you go any further.
If I may, Mr Chair, thank you. Councillor Duffy, I think councillors need to look at page 520, with your permission, Councillor Duffy, which conditions 21 and 22.
21.
21 and 21A, sorry.
Yep.
That's what Councillor Duffy just referred to.
Yep.
That's where the discussion is taking place.
What I'm moving is actually mode C in the valet parking. There is a contribution there for a minor shortfall. The reason why I'm doing that is is valet parking allowable? The answer to that question is yes. We see it all through Sydney and major centres as well, where you often see them put parking cars on top of each other with lifts and those type of things there. So it is allowable. And under our guidelines, report can come to us from an independent people, and the developers in this case have got two independent reports, one from a planner and one from a traffic consultant, which is TPC, and I think the head guy is Steve Wellman, and the other one was from Peter Basher Planning. What it actually does, and we have allowed valet parking in another one in the city over here, which is the Overlander Hotel over there. We've used valet parking to allow the numbers to occur there. And it is allowable. So if it is allowable, it doesn't matter who does the development, it is allowable. So that's the situation with this there. What I do find strange is in the actual application is we're charging for 4 park carts, and we're putting in 5 trees, which would take away 4 car parks. But I mean, that's a different argument. That's just doesn't sort of make sense to me. But I'm not going to complain about that, and I'm not going to do anything with that because all this. I just sort of bring it to the attention that what we're actually doing. But that's my recommendation, is that we use mode C in the valet parking and put a charge of $9,048.41 in item number 20, and we have to modify. I think it's number 53 as well.
Chair, could I ask Mr Hodges to clarify what impact Councillor Duffy's proposition would have on conditions, so councillors know?
That's where, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, through you, Mr Chair, then. So on page 520 of the report, the condition up the top of the page there, condition 21, currently is read as the payment of $102,779.27. What Councillor Duffy has moved there is saying that would say the payment of $59,043.41. That's the change that he's moved there, as well as then a couple of pages over on page 523 and 53. The first dot point there, it says outline the trigger points when the valet modes A and B are enacted. What Councillor Duffy has moved is including C in that as well. So he's going A, B and C. They're the 2 changes that have been moved.
Everyone understand that? Duffy,
Just one moment.
Just wait till he... I haven't finished it. They're just interrupting me.
We're trying to clarify, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so apologies, Mr. Chair. Also on page 517, of condition 1A would also need amendment. So to say, take out the words, because the last sentence of that saying valet modes, currently it's printed, valet modes C and D are not approved. So it would be saying D only. So I'm using Councillor Duffy's motion.
Just to finish off, Mr. Chairman, on what it is, one of the things I just want to bring to your attention about this developer is a local one. They gave us Officeworks over here, and those that have been around long enough to remember what Officeworks was like before that development happened over there, what a fantastic result. They gave us the Carrington Hotel over here, which is part of our Tidy Town submission, but also remember the Mayor delivering an award for the heritage aspect of what they actually did. And I can honestly say, what's happening over here at Quest is absolutely fantastic, because it's going to bring people right into the middle of the town where we actually want them, into our shops. And I think I'd like to see this type of stuff happen more often. Valet parking is allowable, so there's a lot of other building substances that in the middle of the town I'm quite happy to support as well.
Sorry, as a second,
I think you
I'd
might
like
have been
to...
first.
Sorry?
Although Councillor McRae's a bit slow.
Look, as a second, I'd like to respond as well. I do think it's a fantastic development. I have had a look from the top of it. It's a great view out to Mount Canobolas and over the city. Great thing for people to come to this town and spend time and actually look over the city in a large building like that. And you've just got to applaud the commitment of somebody that puts that much money into something and has a pride in their workmanship to go forward and the strength to be able to do it. The hurdles you have when you try and build anything, doesn't matter where you build it these days, there's always so many regulations and so many hurdles. I suppose I think the valet parking is great. I've had a look in the back there. I see all the parking area there. I've no issue that there'd be there's plenty of area there for parking. When you think of a motel such as this, where most people travelling will come and park there at 4 o'clock, have their room and leave by 10, there's plenty of parking there, in my opinion. So look, I support the motion. I think we should adopt the motion, and I'd like to ask you to do it, because number one, what the owner of the building has done to the fact that he's in valet parking. Number three, the movement in that parking lot.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I absolutely agree. It's a fantastic development for Orange, and it's actually one of the few buildings in Orange that's actually painted orange. It's a creative and innovative way to, really show that connection to our city. I'm interested, first of all, in whether the traffic reports that Councillor Duffy referred to have actually been provided to all councillors, because I can't find them in my papers. And I'm also interested in terms of the precedent that this might provide for the opportunity for other businesses in town, or indeed that Overlander redevelopment or the Mid-City Motor Lodge, to be able to reduce their parking contributions by coming up with innovative and creative valet parking designs to ensure that they can, reduce the impact that they have on their hip pocket. Of course, it will minimise any demand because, there's plenty of on-street parking around all of our CBD areas. I'm sure all councillors are regularly confirmed by so many residents of how easy it is to park in town, and that they're, welcoming more people to park in our, retail area. Well, there's lots of available parking, like there's often empty shops. But my question is whether that sets a precedent in terms of approved developments with parking contributions and parking designs to actually come back to us with modifications, reduce their contributions and piggyback up to 6 stacking in a valet parking arrangement. It's just an interesting question for us to consider for future council meetings.
Hodges, would you like to comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, in relation to the does it set a precedent, courts do look at the integrity of a contributions plan, of how a council has been applying it. So the potential, were one to go to court, could be brought into question into the future. In relation to existing developments that have been approved, those that have not commenced, as in they haven't given effect to their consents. We'll go back. Those that have already given effect to their consent and paid their contributions and constructed, their payment is done. So there's no review there. That's future developments and buildings, developments that haven't commenced. So we would have to look at it on a individual basis for ones that haven't commenced or future ones. Could they be innovative? Well, the intensity is such that maybe they could be.
Councillor Hamley.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just want to ask a question. Councillor Duffy stated that the Overlander already does valet parking. Is that correct?
What we approved there was a form of valet parking to the lighter end of the scale. Certainly not what is before us with the current motion, but it does allow some stack parking valet once it gets to trigger points. So it's similar to A or probably more so A in A is the non-valet, then A lower level of valet parking. The Overlander was approved with that level.
Councillor Miletto.
Just wondering whether somebody can give me a definition for valet parking.
Essentially, it's a an arrangement where you don't actually park yourself. Someone else parks for you, and they retrieve your vehicle for you. I think the existing consent that the staff have worked up here does allow for valet parking. It allows for valet parking in mode A and in mode B. And they were both of those were considered reasonable and in line with the previous valet parking that was issued with the original consent arrangement. So if you want to call it innovative, I wouldn't call it innovative. The six stacking of cars would mean that you either have to have a number of staff doing the valet parking to actually retrieve a vehicle in a timely manner, or you would actually be waiting a considerable period of time for your vehicle to be retrieved if you're one of those ones that had 5 cars in front of you.
You're assuming, that occupancy rate would be 100% for that to be the trigger point?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There are a number of trigger points that are outlined in that report. There's modes A operates on about 42 spaces, 42 rooms being operated. I think mode B is on the basis that it was 59 units that were operated. Mode C kicks in when there's, I forget the numbers, but it was another element. Staff have looked at this on the basis of what was considered to be reasonable and practical and manageable on site as to when you get to mode C and D, it starts to get a little bit more complicated in the way in which that's supposed to be managed. So that's why we've recommended the way we have.
And with regards to the intent of the initial DA and the parking, is it my understanding that there was only A and B to start with and then C's come in later, or do we have those options all on the table dating back to the original DA?
The original DA did contemplate some valet parking, and we agreed to that on the basis that we agreed to it over here at the Overland Motel. And it was at that stage it was only a few spaces that were acknowledged. They then subsequently come back and modified that consent, and we introduced some other modes. Some other modes were contemplated at the time, but it was limited to A and B. And then modes C and D, I guess, a more elaborative approach. given the change to the last proposal whereby they increased their floor space of retail space, they clarified, I guess, they wished to have a couple of conditions of consent taken delete a couple of conditions of the consent in relation to staffing numbers. They also looked to delete the condition that led to the operation of the function room, and to be consistent with, I guess, how the court saw 62 Byng Street and how we've dealt with the jobs across the road here. Council staff attached those or recommended those conditions at the time. When those conditions were taken away, that changed the car parking demand. That then related to a greater shortfall. That related to a greater increase in the number of the contribution, to a degree that they've now come back and contemplated, I guess, a more elaborate valet parking arrangement. They've put a further proposal about the number of staff numbers that are there, so we haven't attached that further condition. The use of the function room has been taken into consideration. They've taken away 2 units from the lettable units to nominate those as being a manager's residence. So all of that led to, I guess, a change to those numbers then, and then a more elaborate, valet parking arrangement that went to the degree of trying to manage all of their car parking on their site at various different stages of the day. And I guess staff have gone through those stages and just got to C and D, and start to look at how practical it is to put into implementation, how reasonable it is in terms of the impact that this development will have on the locality in terms of parking.
So with regards to the initial end of the valet parking, what you're looking at in C and D, what would the range be, or what's the difference?
You start to end up having car parking. If you look at mode C, you end up having you look at mode C, you end up having vehicles that are parked 4 and 5 deep in terms of actually being able to get to the spaces. Mode D, you end up having spaces that are in front of the spaces that are required to be made available to the retail and restaurant components of it. That's, I guess, D was the nth degree, whereby you've got all your units occupied, your restaurant occupied, your retail space occupied. So it's probably on a very rare occasions that it perhaps gets there, but it's been a very much a big challenge because the RMS Guide to Traffic Generating Development specifies a static rate as to numbers of rooms, numbers of staff, number of managers, number of retail spaces, number of restaurant seats, etc., etc. It gives you a number, but it doesn't really reflect how the site changes during the day. At various different stages of the day, you'll have busy times and you'll have light times, and you'll have, depending upon the capacity of the facility towards the end of the day, will dictate how that works. So, with the valet arrangement, it gets to a stage whereby the staff need to manage those parking resources, and it comes down to what is considered to be a reasonable approach to that.
Thank you.
Mr. Waddell.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, Councillor, if an applicant, I just want to clarify what your decision is based on. If an applicant wants to do valet parking that you might think is silly, won't work, the customers will get angry, that's not really your decision. Your decision is around if that happens and there's too much valet parking, it gets too difficult, will those customers then spread out into the streets surrounding the hotel?
Mr. Chair, I think this is a good...
Mine's gone blank.
Councillor Nugent.
Nugent, yes.
So I think this is a good development in many ways. In terms of its location, in relation to people coming into town on the bus and the train, it's walking distance from there, so people don't necessarily have to drive to use this particular facility. They can come in and come from the train or the bus to the Quest Apartments. They're making space for eight bicycle spaces, which I think is fantastic, which may be used by staff, or may be used, who knows, may be used by some people who who ride and stay in the rooms and ride into town on bicycles. So, and there's also space for a couple of motorbikes, I believe, as well. My initial reading of the report when I first read it, the report, was that it seemed like a reasonable compromise from where we were with a parking contribution over $300,000 back down to a parking contribution of about $100,000. Councillor Duffy's moved an amendment to reduce that to $54 or whatever $1,000 parking contribution. In terms of the valet parking, and we're talking about, I think people have talked about 6 deep. I'm just having a look at Mode C, which is what we're talking about, Mode C valet arrangement, not Mode D. I don't think that's being proposed. Mode C. So it does look like there's a number of places where it might be 4 deep, but is there situations where it would be 6 deep? And how full would the motel need to be? But how full would the motel need to be in order to get to that situation where we've got valet 6 deep?
Yeah, I'll need to dissect that a little bit, but for example, the space that's right up in the corner of the building there, 13 is it? You'd need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in order to have that vehicle out of that scenario. And in moving those, and moving those 5 spaces, where do those 5 vehicles go on that site while you move those 5 spaces is the question. Whether or not those vehicles are circulated around the site and temporarily parked before they're reparked, these are some of the questions that we started to raise about that. In terms of when that operation, the report indicates when Mode C would actually, the applicant's proposal as to when Mode C would enact. Range of 59 to 70 rooms. So 59 out of 75. So you start to talk about 70, 80%, 70% occupancy. And the applicants have put cases available there that typically their occupation rates may not necessarily, they aim for 75, 80%. Whilst it will get to 100% from time to time, they've provided some evidence within this report that talks about it. Other centres operating at sort of 70, 75, 80%. So those things also need to be taken into consideration. The applicant's full submission has been put in italics there as the reasons as to why they've operated under different circumstances, how they operate those facilities. There's also the dual key issue as to whether or not a unit is made available, might be a small 1-bedroom unit versus a second unit. Some of them are operated as 2-bedroom units, some are operated as single-bedroom units. But so that's all been taken into the mix, and it's articulated out in the report. The applicant's submission is articulated out in the report there about the many different ways in which these things can be looked at and managed, and that's with the best analysis there.
Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Chair. A follow-up question. I understand the original recommendation that we had was to approve modes A and B as the valet parking. And I'm interested, and perhaps it might be clarified, but why the mover has recommended we include mode C and reduce the parking contributions by $40,000 and how that is a better outcome.
That's all you, mate.
I'm happy to close the debate, Mr Chairman. Close the debate if no one else wants to speak. No.
I speak for Mode C. I look at it quite simply, that valet parking is permissible. As far as reduction in fees go, the developer is providing the spaces for the reduction, just not a reduction of fees for the heck of it. And simply, I believe council should have the right to tell people how to arrange their car parks. Basically it. As far as extra traffic on the road, or if too complex, people won't park their parking on the road. If it's too complex, people just won't. Bad business decision. They'll call for changes themselves. That's all I got to say there.
Well, if I might just make a few comments, if everyone else has finished, I would have been quite happy if it was included tonight that they pay the $102,000 as option C. I think we've been very fair to the developer and acknowledging, yes, they do have very good development in Orange, and it's been noted by Councillor Duffy, some of those. But you've got to remember that the original development application didn't include the shops that is now included, which has taken away parking. So they're going to get rent out of all those shops. As far as the manager's residence, we won't know whether the manager's sleeping there that night or if there's a push on accommodation that the manager chooses not to sleep there that night. We won't know. We will never know. As I said in the report, part of the report, they're running a business, and if their customers are not happy with the valet parking, they may not come and stay there next time that they are in Orange. That'll be a decision of their customers, and it's a decision that the management's made that they'll be able to handle the valet parking. Time will tell. There will be nights when the place is chockers, as we say, and everything will be stretched to a limit. There'll be other nights when there's only 35% occupancy. Everything will run very smoothly. So I would have been quite happy to support the $102,000 option because I think we've been very fair to the developer up to this stage, and I'm just a little bit worried about the precedents that we might be setting on that lower limit. Any other comments before we put the motion? Councillor Duffy, do you want to summarise?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, we're dealing with Quest. Now, Quest is not a new kid in town. There have been all across New South Wales and in Sydney and all those places. They also submitted a report with previously where other councils have taken into consideration in their parking matters, and Quest have written a letter to council saying that they only really need 44 on the thing, it's 44 parking spaces. I acknowledge what Councillor Turner said as regards to the office space and taking parking spaces, and that is probably one of the main reasons why I've said the $59,000 contribution should be actually there. Going back to what Councillor Nugent said, they are cooperating and abiding by Destination New South Wales. They put in bike racks, they put in motorbike things and all those other places. I want to take you back to it when I mentioned in the chamber here before when I went to ride one time, and John Alexander, the member for Bennelong, who's a federal member for Bennelong, came to me and said, Kevin, we need accommodation in your area. Because the number of Chinese tourists that's going to come out to Australia is going to be huge, but they don't want to stay in Sydney. They want to get out and have a look around. And you can see that when you go to Tasmania and those places. It's full of them down there. It's fantastic. But it's also, as Councillor Nugent pointed out, it is alongside the railway station, it's alongside where the buses go, it's close to the taxis, and you can walk. And the mere fact is that we have to get a little bit smarter and say, hey, valet parking is allowable, and it's a right. So I tell you, that's the reason why I've moved it. I think 100% we should be supporting it.
Just a point of clarification, the applicant is Eastern Developments, isn't it? It's not Quest.
Not Quest, no.
Right. So a lot of discussion's been around Quest. The development application is by Eastern Developments Proprietary Limited.
Yeah, you're right.
These are right. Councillor Munro, the debate's finished. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, does everyone understand what the recommendation is? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. That completes the Planning and Development Committee. I'll call on Councillor Miletto to carry out the Employment and Economic Development Committee.
Can you get Councillor Romano, please?
Andrew.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Turner. The time being 8:05 p.m, I declare the meeting open for the the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting. Introduction, declaration of clear interest, significant number of clear interest, and less than significant number of clear interest. Are there any? There being none, to 1.1, sorry.
2.1.
2.1, minutes of the economic...
I'll move those.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Any discussion with regards to that?
It's really a matter arising, Mr Chair. Do you want to vote on the motion first?
Yeah, we'll vote first, please. All in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Councillor Nugent.
Yes. The minutes talk about the Orange OC Future City project, which has sort of been going on for some time now, which is a fantastic project. But it has been almost 2 years since this council formed, and one of the big issues that was debated during that election campaign leading up to that was about the CBD revitalisation. It continues to be an issue that people talk about. I walk past my redevelopment quite often, and that's coming along really nicely, and that sort of activation of Post Office Lane looks like it should be really good. But there's a lot more to the CBD revitalisation than just the Myer development. I understand that I think we got an email just today about a meeting with the consultants, not this week, next week. Can I confirm that that's... Okay. But there does seem to be sort of long chunks of time between when the consultants come and when they sort of come next, and we haven't really seen a lot of public discussion, there's been community consultation, but in terms of talking about what's going to be happening and letting the public know. What I'd ask is that after that meeting next week, if we could have a report at some stage to councillors about the sort of time frame for the next steps, when we're likely to see something that might be going out sort of on public exhibition, and some implementation, or at least some finalisation of some of the proposals. So if I can put that request.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair. One of the things we are doing is, an email will come out tomorrow, we're actually delaying that meeting for another couple of weeks, partly around the volume of ideas that we're getting through. There's a lot, so more than 100 ideas through the steering committee and the community reference group, so the whole lot of stuff coming. The next stage is a really critical one where start to get some real ideas about what the CBD might look like in the future. So we're at that stage where the sort of the rubber is going to be hitting the road.
Thank you, Mr Redmond. Is there any further discussion? There being none, I'll close the meeting at 8:08 p.m. and call upon Councillor Romano to conduct the infrastructure meeting.
Of course. Yeah. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting at about 8:10. Does any councillor have a pecuniary, non-pecuniary, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant in any of the matters listed for consideration tonight? No? Move on to section 2, item 2.1, minutes of the City of Orange Traffic Committee meeting.
Mr Chair.
Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Munro. Do we have any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Unanimous. Section 3, General Reports, item 3.1 on the current works. There's a recommendation on page 80. I'd need a mover.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Miletto.
Just on the water supply, just hope everyone has actually read that and the media have read it, just what our consumptive use is per week. Notice in something I think that was sent out to all councillors, an article that was in the Australian Water Association. The Australian Water Association, it's just come out recently, got a video and a report talking about other centres and actually talking about Orange and Orange's consumptive use of potable water, actually how low it is back. So again, I'd like to congratulate the community of Orange. Once again, it is important to say that we've virtually in a 10, 12-year period, a bit longer than that, you've halved, more than halved our consumptive. Spectacular. As I said, I know the Minister is quite aware of that now and has even said in discussion that's not a bad way of actually having a measurement in a community on what your water actual usage is. Found it interesting tonight to see on television before I came, Gilgandra River. Gilgandra Council decided last night not to ordinary. But in saying that, I do encourage our council, and I'm sure our staff are doing it, New South Wales Government, further funding for initiatives for water sustainability, and I caps on, and perhaps looking at extension of our stormwater harvesting, which is successful, or possibly other ways that none of us in this know about. But while it's there, I think Dubbo have just got about $20 million and Bathurst have got about $20 to $30 million to look at ways in ensuring their water sustainability. I think she'll be going again.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd.
Mr.
Councillor Hamlin.
Can I just ask a question to the Director of Technical Services? The just down south from the roundabout there in Woodward Road, I think is it Franklin or Gardner? There's all pink pegs there. What construction's going on there?
Yeah, I'll have to take that on notice.
Know what I'm talking about now?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we might have
We've got Jason here, so.
Thanks, Jason.
Oh, okay. No, I thought it might have been another roundabout, that's all.
Thanks, Jason. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to echo the Mayor's comments about the average consumption. It continues to decline, now down to 133 litres per person per day. I'm not sure whether people are sort of taking on board the concern, obviously, being aware of our water storage and they're cutting back. I think I think that is a spectacular result that it continues to drop, even after we, decided not to sort of move to level 5 at 35%, but sort of move it back to 30%. So, and I just wonder whether we can, do something to congratulate or thank the people of Orange at some point for their efforts in that regard. The other thing I just wanted to comment on was the Burrendong Way resurfacing. I went for a ride on my Treadley on Sunday morning and deliberately went down there, and it's actually fantastic to ride down that road now compared to what it was. So just congratulations to the staff all involved in that work. I think it's still some line marking to be done, but I think all the curb and gutting's done and the surfacing's done. So yeah, fantastic job.
Yeah, with the Councillor Munro.
Just like to ask a question. We state government's help put the big pipeline out to Oval Cumnock. Is that officially being closed at the moment? Maybe you could bring back a report just to see that network of infrastructure is being at this time.
Well, it's a matter for Gabon Council. It's not a matter for Orange City Council, and doesn't connect in with our network as such.
Not coming from Orange.
Not at this point, but there is potential for it to be connected to Orange in the future.
Another thing that I'd like to bring up, talking about sewer and water and the rest of it, a gentleman rang me up the other day, Fred Beck. Fred's a lovely bloke and one of the, real old school. And Monday on the 22nd of July, he had a blockage at his house. Blockage in the toilet. And, this is a good news story for our staff, and I just wanted to relay from Fred, and he told me to sort of give the guys a pat on the back. Now, the 22nd, he had a blockage. He rang council, came to council, and within 10 minutes, our staff were around there and helped unblock it. Well, it was a pretty severe blockage, and it went everywhere. And he really, yeah, the sewer, it just went all over his yard and in his house and all that. And look, it was pretty daunting. It's pretty terrible. And these blokes, 4 of them turned up from our council, and he said, emotional about it, that how well these guys helped him clean that up. They got in and they cleaned everything. And when they left, it was spotless. I think these 4 men should be commended for their efforts, because they went beyond what he thinks he would expect. So can we have a little look back, staff, on who those 4 men were, and either send them a letter of commendation from us as council, because that's what we want. Stories like this, they come along, but no one ever hears about. There's always somebody having to whinge about something or whatever. But sort of thing, they did go and clean it up 100%, and was really happy with the job. I think
me too. Councillor Munro.
Can we do something for them or whatever? So thank you.
Councillor Privatera.
Just got a question for you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering whether water sensitive cities.
Pardon?
Sensitive cities is up to
The water sensitive cities
partnership.
partnership.
Yeah, I'll take it on notice and get a report back from Wayne Beatty. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, it's great to see the update on the Southern Feeder Road construction, and I know that there's been a lot of progress. I know the Northern Distributor roads are well utilised, but my question is, as I've had a number of residents of Ploughman's Lane ask, what's the plan to actually provide a connection for those perhaps who intend to travel north-south? So from for example, the Forbes Road, or from the end of the Northern Distributor Road down to Cargo Road, or from Cargo Road down to connect with eventually the Southern Feeder Road, or to indeed head out to Shirley or the hospital. Perhaps that might be something we could get an update on. And I know that there are a large number of residents concerned about narrow Ploughman's Lane currently, also concerns about increased traffic and driver behaviour, particularly maybe some speeding. But what is the plan for the connection to, I guess, complete what will eventually be a fantastic road network for Orange, I guess almost a ring road?
Yeah, certainly. We've already presented a report to Council on the Southern Feeder Road that did run through that, and may not have addressed those concerns explicitly, but certainly did discuss those concerns. The Stage 4 of the Southern Feeder Road is currently 50% funded, and will connect onto the Pinnacle Road in a southerly direction. So as part of that work, the main link through for traffic once stage 4 is constructed will more than likely be Woodward Street, which is a much larger street than the Ploughman's Lane section. Ploughman's Lane will still get increased traffic as it does at the moment.
I just know, considering I know Councillor Hamling's raised on a number of occasions concerns around Orange High School peak times with traffic flow, is there a plan to discourage people from using Ploughman's Lane as a rat run, or will there be just a suck it and see approach?
No, I think the rat run, the formal rat run, will actually be along Woodward Street. It is the most direct route through from the west to the east in that north-south direction, coming north-south, once stage 4 is constructed. Once stage 5 is constructed and it links around Towak Park and into Ploughman's Lane, then yes, you'll get a very direct route along Ploughman's Lane. And as the report previously discussed, there are planned upgrades for Ploughman's Lane as well, and the intersections with Cargo Road and Forbes Road.
So I guess confirming to those residents who've asked me, I just confirm there's no immediate plans to improve Ploughman's Lane, but Ploughman's Lane will be the connection that will continue to be used by the normal residents of Orange and anybody who's coming from Cargo, Kudal, Canowindra, running onto the Northern Distributor.
That's correct. That's our current plan for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My as a follow-up comment and question to you, Mr. Director, is that I think some months ago you gave us a plan of what the overall picture was of how the links were going to actually occur. One of my concerns is I don't think we can wait another 10 years for Ploughman's Lane to be fixed. I mean, you go along the bottom of Weena there, and it's nearly a four-wheel drive track in places. But I just wonder whether we could sort of come back to council and sort of reduce the number of stages in that. I think we're up to about 8 or 9 stages by the time we get it linked. That stage there. I just wonder if we could the number of stages and increase the dollars to chase the government. Don't care which one it is, as long as they come up with it.
Mr. Chair, if I could say one thing, good discussion. We've got a Footpaths and Roads Forum coming up, a public forum, next week?
Next Tuesday.
Next week. So I think
Tuesday.
there's going to be a good home for this sort of discussion, and there'll be a lot of information provided by the engineers.
Okay, I'd like to bring something up that is very pleasing as well. Coronation Drive, Orange High School, I've noticed that they've got, they had 2 people there directing the children crossing the road. Now, that's fantastic because it's certainly improved the traffic flow. And if that was an initiative by the school, can I move that we send them a letter to thank them on behalf of the residents? Because I didn't know about it.
Perhaps ask Jason to an explanation
Jason,
after our meeting. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's really, I've had a lot of feedback from it. It certainly has improved the flow of traffic during those peak times. And you would know, Mr. Meggs, you've been involved with it, but no one knew. But congratulations. So yeah, I'd like to, if we can, we'd like to send them a letter saying thank you on behalf of the council. Councillor Hamling.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to go back to Ploughman's Lane, and I know we're going to have a roads forum. We're going to talk about it. I'd have to agree with Councillor Duffy and Councillor McRae. Ploughman's Lane is a goat track, been filled and potholed and filled, and you only got to go for a drive down there and realise that that road, if we're going to be waiting until stage 19 of the Southern Feeder Road for that one to be done, I think we need to bump it up the priority list. And we've got a roads forum next week. That could be one that we try to bump up the roads. And while we're on the roads forum, I think we should start getting some publicity out there to tell the people that come along, see what we've done, see what we're doing, and see what we've got planned. Because I know before the last election a couple of years ago, roads and footpaths were a very hot topic, and I know driving around myself, we are doing lots of footpaths. Like you can see it, but it's the people's chance to come and have a say, come and have a look. And, if we can get some publicity out there, it'd be fantastic.
Councillor Hamling, are you referring to the northern end of Plowmans?
Talking about the one past Rywena.
Cargo Road to Forbes Road.
It is. It's
both of them.
Yeah, okay. Now,
but it's I'm
Cargo Road to Forbes Road.
Exactly. That's the one. Mr. Mayor he travelled down that road. It is a goat track, and let's be fair dinkum, it's not very good.
No, it is.
It has a lot of traffic on it.
Yeah. Is that the one where the cricket pitches? Okay, while we're on that, can I just raise a question on that? Why the constant sewer smell that comes from that area? Is there a septic tank? Is there a busted pipe? It is. I've had a lot of. I've smelled it myself, and it's just as you go past the cricket area. I won't say what my young bloke says to me, but yeah, he looks at me and goes, "Did you?" And I said, "No."
He's the one the windows down.
There you go. Yeah, if something
Your windows
can we have a look?
against
Because it appears that it could be coming from the cricket septic tank or something. I don't know, but there is a really bad smell there.
Now,
Okay.
Now.
So, Mr. Chair, the communication starts tomorrow or the next day for the forum. Point taken. We'll get that out pretty quick.
Yep. Thank you.
And that smell will be investigated.
Thank you
very much. Now,
Bruce, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, going back to what you said as regards to Orange High School, I sent a letter to Orange High School. Lexington in the last few months have done exactly the same thing, which is far more dangerous. That area up there is far more dangerous than what was up at Orange High School. The road is not wide up there at the back of what's the name of the street? What's the name of the street?
Listen, I'd suggest you sit down. You're losing it.
Phillip Street, the narrowness of it. The staff are up there handing it.
okay. Any further discussion
Not
on?
be selective to the school where the mayor went.
Okay. Settle down, Councillor Duffy. Item 3.1. Are we done on that? Any further discussion? If not, I'll move the motion. All in favour? Show of hands. Aye. Against? Carried. Unanimous. Now we'll move on to section 3. Item 3.2. Lucknow Mine
Move the recommendation.
dewatering.
The recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Privatera.
Question, Mr. Chairman. My question is, does the EPA or council monitor the arsenic levels?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I doubt it. I think they have in the past.
Look, can I just say on this one, this is the perennial. Comes up every time there's a new council. I think for once and for all, we should put it to bed. Two things that Orange are famous for. There's more gold left in Lucknow that ever come out of it. Well, if there was, I'll guarantee you they'll be out there trying to get it out. Number two is that, yes, those mines were flooded, but I think what's important here with mine, this took a lot of time to get this report together again. It is a report that we had in 2004. We had one in the 90s, back in the 80s, which says exact same thing about the water, except for one thing. If you take water out of a lot of that mine and that sort of geological structure, expose it to air, the rock rots very, very quickly and it can it can collapse. So, look, good idea, great. And arsenic level change. It changes in season and all sorts of stuff, and depending on what rock and what mine you're talking about. It's not the whole area or asbestos or in others. It's stable, problem with it.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. That brings infrastructure to an end at 8:30.
It's a matter of rising, if I may. Look, the Australian Water I forget what the Association have got their conference here in Orange, and Mr. Wayne Beattie, I think he's the current president of New South Wales organisation. I think, is that right? Yeah, he's the current president. So that means there'll be a lot of people in Orange over Thursday and Friday, and staying here probably Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday from all over the state, talking about a whole range of things in water issues. So if anyone sees anyone around, say good day to them, and I'd like to throw back to you, Mr. Acting General Manager, congratulate Beatty on number 1 and staff getting the conference here. Number 2, getting some very good keynote speakers for it. One of those being Gillian Kirby will be one of the keynote speakers.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. I'd like to pass on to Councillor Nugent now for the Services Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Romano. I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting of 6th of August with the time being 8:31. Firstly, declarations of interest. Does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? If not, we'll move right along to item 2.2, which is the minutes of the Cultural Heritage Committee meeting of the 3rd of June.
I will move that way, Mr. Chair.
By Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Duffy. The recommendations on page 5. Any discussion, questions, comments? If not, I'll move the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Show of hands. All those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item 2.2, minutes of the NAIDOC Week Community Committee of the 4th of July.
Just with one
recommendation
addition.
on page, sorry.
One addition, I was an apology.
Page 41, the recommendation.
Page 42.
And you're just asking, Mr. Mayor.
I was an apology.
You're an apology for that meeting, so I'm sure we'll be able to get those.
We'll correct the record.
Minutes corrected. And with that change, is there any? So I need a mover and a seconder. Moves Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor McRae. I think just beat you, Mr. Mayor. So any comments or discussion on that item? Yes, Councillor Miletto.
Yes, item 3.2, the budget for the Girls' Night Out is noted and be requested at $500 for soft drinks be approved. Sounds like a fairly tame night for a Girls' Night Out, Councillor. What does it involve?
I'll just note that comment, Councillor Miletto, but I think there are reasons why those two events are both alcohol-free events. So. The program for NAIDOC Week this year is shaping up to be another cracker, and I'd encourage councillors to get involved in the activities and come along to the awards night, which is normally a lot of fun. Any other comments or discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, show of hands. Against? The motion is carried, and that draws to conclusion the Services Policy Committee meeting at 8:33. I think it is. And I'll hand back to the Mayor to resume the full meeting of Council.
No items for Sport and Recreation, Environmental Sustainability for Finance Policy Committee. I'm around. No notices of motion or notices of rescission, and we move on to general reports. And the first one is number 5, and that's 5.1, upcoming conference, Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference, which this year is being held at Warwick Farm. Well, first of all, move the recommendation. Yeah, okay, sorry. Councillor Hamling, seconder. Councillor Munro. Right. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Any nominations? Yeah, any nominations? Yep, I can call for that. We've moved the recommendation. Now, nominations to folk that want to go. Councillor Nugent. Councillor Romano,
Nominate Councillor Miletto.
Councillor Miletto,
We've got Nugent, Romano, Duffy, Miletto so far.
I'll be going.
4, and yourself, Mr. Mayor. We have 5.
I think that's all we need there.
Mr. Bent.
Bit of clarification on that, Mr. Chair. Would the acting general manager or the new general manager be going?
Sorry?
The acting general manager or the new general manager be going?
Look, I think that's a left field question because we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know whether we'll have one.
Well, the reason why I asked, Mr. Chairman, is because a lot of the conferences we've been, our general manager hasn't been at.
Yep.
I think it's important that the general managers are there.
I'm sure if we've got a general manager by then that the general manager will attend. Yeah, well, it'll be the acting general manager or the general manager will be. Now, the only other thing, sorry, Councillor Nugent, want to know about the 3 voting delegates.
Nominate Councillor Miletto.
Councillor Miletto,
I'll nominate Councillor Nugent.
Nominate Duffy.
I'll nominate myself. I will be one of them as a mayor being there, so I'll overrule you as I'll be one of them. So you've got nominations for Councillor Miletto, Councillor Nugent and Councillor Duffy.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. We've got about 5 going, have we?
5 going?
We'll get to there and we won't. You want to have a vote? We've got nominations for Councillor Miletto, Councillor Nugent and Councillor Duffy. Do you want to by show of hands or? Yeah. All right. Are you all comfortable with a show of hands?
Yes, I second
I
that.
think we're big enough. I think we're big enough, aren't we? All right. You'll get Councillor Miletto.
Voting for each, like we vote for 3, we get 3 votes to spend? Voting for 3
3
nominees?
votes or 1 vote?
Mr. Chair, I think
Have a
you've
ballot.
got 4 nominees. I think if you
no,
did
so
a
you've got
show,
3.
no, you've got 4 nominees.
Voting delegates.
And you're after 3 voting delegates.
Yeah,
so
so-
perhaps if you went one by one and get a show of hands for
Yeah,
each, we'll
all
count
right.
them and see who the 3 winners are.
All right.
Then we'll move on to the boo.
All right. Councillor Miletto.
5.
Yourself. Can we?
Sit.
Oh,
I
sorry,
didn't
can we
count.
vote multiple times?
Hold on. I don't.
As many times as you want.
Good, is it?
We're after 3. Let's
Vote for Councillor Miletto.
6.
And.
Let's see how it pans out after the vote.
All right.
Okay.
Councillor Nugent.
8. Go over hands again, please. It was a late hand. 8.
Councillor Duffy.
what?
You only got to put one hand up. Put your hand down.
I've got 6. 1,
Yep.
2, 1, 2, 3. Show of hands, please.
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Put out of a hat, Mr. Mayor.
We have 1 more to go. Self.
You don't have to vote for me. I've just told you I'm going and I'm voting. Mayor does
Is the
vote.
mayor automatic? Thank you, Councillor
The mayor
Hamlin.
is automatic. I'm not.
There's 3 of us there.
Yeah, so
I'm quite happy to take your vote and chair.
That means they put your vote in.
adjudicator, to me, it means...
Let me tell you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor.
I'll second that from Councillor Duffy. It's a practical solution.
Let me tell you, it's very important. It's important you have experienced councillors there because you're going to be voting on things and for delegates that most of you will have no idea about what you're talking about.
Well, I'll withdraw then, and if you want to
But
experienced
Councillor
councillors, I'm
Councillor
happy
Duffy,
to
it's
do that.
also good to have some newer councils there to get the
that's-
vibe of what's going on in case you pass the baton on.
Reason why I
No,
encourage
listen,
everyone to
before-
go.
Before everyone gets excited about it,
Mr. Mayor, I withdraw. You got your 3.
it's tonight. It's quite a while until it comes up. Now, something may happen in the meantime. And don't forget, When you're down there, persons may have to leave the room or not be there, and you can pass that vote on to one of your delegates. We may even share it around, share the love around. Everyone can have a go pressing the button.
I might make the point it's actually also a voting year, so the delegate badges will be a different colour and you will be harassed by those who are seeking your endorsement through the Electoral Commission organised vote.
Exactly.
So it's not just the actual voting on the motions, it will also be the lobbying by the those seeking election to the board.
As your president and vice president
And that's why,
representatives and
that's why I say you need experienced councillors to understand what's been before and what's happening.
Yes, we've got 4 names there. You've got Councillor Miletto, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Duffy and myself.
I've already indicated I want to withdraw, so you've got 3.
Okay, but you don't want to go now?
No, I don't want to vote.
Okay, so...
Councillor Duffy said he wants experienced people, so I'm withdrawing.
You wish?
Thank you.
My comment's not to be taken as a denigration to the other councillors at all.
Well, it is.
No, well, it's not.
Hold, councillors. I'm going to draw a line in the sand here. Councillor Miletto has indicated that he wants to withdraw. That's his democratic right. He has withdrawn. Okay, voting delegates are Councillor Nugent, Councillor Duffy and myself. Yeah, and Councillor Romano. Okay, sorry. Now, also, what's the date? Does anyone know the date when motions have got to be in by?
19th of August.
19th of August, so that's not long. We haven't got a... Yes, we have.
Yes, we have, Mr. Chairman.
We have got one meeting.
We've got
the next meeting's the 20th. The day.
Yes.
We've got the issue of private certifiers.
All right. If anyone's got any motions, can they please flick them through to the acting general manager, and he'll flick them out to everybody, and work it that way.
Issue of private certifiers.
I think we'll double check. I think the issue of private certifiers will be right up front this year. I'm quite sure. I think it'll be on the top of the list somehow. Look, the other one is, and I'm not sure. I can flag that one now about cost shifting. Keeping that on the agenda about cost shifting that every year. Warm and in their face that we're cost shifting all the time.
Areas.
Particularly regional areas, yeah. Okay, and any others that you've got, please put them through the general manager and he'll... Okay, we move on to 5.2, which is the National General Assembly report by Councillor McRae. And I'd like to thank Councillor McRae for doing that report, as there was a lot of very, very interesting sessions, and I'd like to thank Councillor Miletto and Councillor McRae and Councillor Duffy who were there. One of the good things I thought was we split up when there were different sessions on, so we always had a presence at various sessions. So I'd like to thank you all, and thank particularly Councillor McRae for the very comprehensive report.
Can I move my report?
Second the recommendation.
Wait for that. Move Councillor McKay, seconded Councillor Turner. All in favour? Thank you. Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd just also like to thank Councillor McRae for the report. It's we can't all go to these conferences, and having something to sort of read to see what issues are being discussed. Obviously, there was a number of fairly important issues being discussed there, including opportunities presented by new technologies, such as LED street lighting, and the role of local government in addressing housing needs in the community. And just in relation to housing, there was quite a number of presentations, obviously, around housing. I think I'm right in saying that talked about, or there is a local housing strategy we're developing. Can I just ask a question as to where that is up to, and does that include consideration of affordable housing issues?
Through Mr. Chair, yes, the Department of Planning and Environment has got a template approach now to local housing strategies. We've announced the commencement of ours. I've met with several developers and real estate agents. We're starting the process. We will soon complete the first stage, which is effectively the supply and demand, the issues in the LGA. Affordable housing will be considered and must be considered as part of that. Social housing will also come into it. Once we finish that, we will go out to the community and we will ask for input. Puts on where to go, what sort of housing. You know, do we go into the CBD with high rise? Anything to do with housing. We're trying to set course of housing in the next 20 years. So it's a pretty big study, and you'll see that coming soon. A consultant is helping us with stage one on the research.
Just a follow-up question then. Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. But in terms of the time frame for going out to the public and asking for comments, do we have a kind of rough park that we're aiming for?
Being August, I was hoping to go in October to community consultation and to receive submissions from landowners and the process. In my mind, I'm looking at Christmas as a deadline to have something on exhibition.
Just remind you too, at Thursday, I think it's 12:30 to 2:30, there's that forum open day up at Housing Plus. Week, but so it's 12:30 to 2:30.
So, Mr. Mayor, what day is that?
Thursday.
This Thursday.
12 to 2, is it? Yeah, sorry, 12 to 2. It's just
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look,
The lunchtime, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of things to point out. It's quite interesting in the report on page 55, if you have a look. In the last decade, $20 billion of roads projects were either cancelled, delayed or mothballed due to community opposition. And one of the areas where we take the biggest hiding around the ears is about roads. And that's quite incredible. $20 billion were mothballed or didn't go ahead due to community opposition, which is quite interesting. It's not in my backyard. And I just mentioned one other, I think there was lots of good speakers, but one I found inspiring again, and I've heard him on 2 or 3 occasions. But I mean, what he does in the community outside his sport and everything, you really have to admire Kurt Fernley. I've never seen anyone at a national local government conference or a state national conference or any conference get a standing ovation. That's exactly what he got. That I've never ever seen that before. So it just shows that what he delivered was inspiring, absolutely inspiring. So thanks, Councillor McRae, for that. We move on to 5.3. We did. 5.3 is strategic policy review, and that's
move it.
Purchasing policy in the public interest disclosure. Move, Councillor Duffy. Seconder. Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. 5.4 is adoption of amendment to fees, family day care.
Move the recommendation.
Second it.
And a second, Councillor Nugent. All in favour? Against? Thank you. None against. 5.5 is a request to enter into a parking agreement, Aldi Store Orange.
Move the recommendation.
And a second, Councillor Nugent. All in favour? And thanks.
Matter arising, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, Councillor Taylor at a previous meeting asked...
Hold it. I've got all 4. All against? Thank you. Carried.
I asked about parking for a report to come back to council. Parking. Is that coming back to the next meeting on the 20th?
Refresh my memory.
Councillor Taylor requested a report to come back to council on parking, discussion about parking fines and who has been fined and who wasn't being fined. Or coming back to council about... It spoke about actually being booked and...
Hold it. Look, I'll rule that right. I'll rule that right out of question because it's got nothing to do with the parking agreement at Aldi stores. Good try, but no, that's got nothing to do with the parking agreement with Aldi stores. Right. 5.6 is Southern Lights project, and I would like to move this from the chair.
I'd like to second it, Mr. Mayor.
The interest.
Sorry, and if I can speak to it, look, I think this is a terribly exciting project and something that's been spoken about for quite a while through Centroc, which is now the JOC, and it's just a matter of time right throughout. Bathurst have already made the commitment to go with it. If you look at the figures, it just makes sense. I mean, if you can save nearly $500,000 a year when we get there, rate that we can borrow money with at the moment, it still doesn't take us out of the loop of pushing, get government funding for the project as a whole. And that will still occur through the JOC and so forth. I am a little bit disappointed. I may say that I thought this was a lay down misère with government, to be quite frank. Looking at it for a whole range of reasons, low energy prices, more efficient, better for the environment, hooking up smart city stuff into it, with surveillance and and the list goes on and on and on and on. Just wonder what else, what other bells and whistles that you have to put onto it for it to be a significant project. So I would recommend it to you all. Okay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just as Chair of Finance, it seems like a very financially responsible decision to make with such a short payback period, with the annual savings resulting from the conversion in the order of $500,000 per year for an outlay estimated at $2.5 million. That's a pretty impressive return on investment.
Certainly is. Wish I could do it.
I fully support it, and I just also want to note in terms of the technology opportunities that LED lighting might open up in the future, and that maybe state government funding, if it does come, may help to fund. I think it's an important part of the CBD or the OC Future City project that the two work in very well together. So I'm very happy to support it, Mr Mayor.
All in favour? Against? Thank you.
Mr Mayor, could I just have a matter of... I should have probably asked this in planning. I apologise. I was contacted by a few people about 4 sale signs coming onto council land.
Good question.
It's starting to crop up a bit around Orange at the moment. What's the rulings on those?
Mr Chair, sorry. I got phone calls from 2 real estate agents who were complaining about other real estate agents doing it. Mr Johnston...
Dobbed each other in.
Mr Johnston will be sending out a blanket letter to all real estate agents telling them the rules.
Those complaints where they don't want us to say who...
Okay, that's all right. I wasn't contacted by people.
Councillor Romano.
Mr Mayor, before we move into closed meeting, I've also got a matter arising. It's a question, if you'll take it. We didn't have Sports and Rec tonight, but my question, Sports and Rec, we didn't have that on the agenda tonight. Probably comes under that, but I really would like to know what has happened to the archery. The archery that was approved for the showground, I've not heard a thing about it. People are still waiting.
I have to answer it, Mr.
Yeah, thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We've conducted a number of actions, councillor. So we've contacted the local club and we've sought a meeting, and we continue to seek a meeting with the bow hunters to progress the formation of a club. We need the support of a local group to form a club, because it's not something that council does, i.e. form a sporting group. We haven't been able to do that as yet, to progress the formation of the club. We have all the equipment in place. We've purchased all that. That's all on site. It's not set up. We've also been in touch with both the state and national associations about how we can progress the club and how it might continue to operate. So our barrier at the moment is having a club to work with us to establish it.
Okay, well, this is the first I've heard of it through you, Mr Mayor. I would have appreciated some feedback on where we're at. I wouldn't have raised it tonight, but I've heard nothing about this, and people have asked me what's happened to the archery, and now I'm hearing that we've got to form a club. I thought that the discussions that we had I was going to be involved as the mover and Councillor Privatera as the seconder of that original motion. I would have appreciated a bit of feedback and at least to be acknowledged that, you know, we brought it forward. So I'm a little disappointed with that, to be quite honest.
Okay, how about we move this forward by council, discuss it with, we'll have just a summary go out to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, excuse me. Now moving into close. So the Acting General Manager will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There are none.
I extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following businesses of a kind as referred to in Section 10A in brackets 2 of the Act should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council, meeting closed to the press public. Items to be considered in closed are 6.1, 6.2, just waiting for one more to leave.